In the spring of 2023, I decided to tackle a new automotive project. I was trying to find something that kind of played into the whole lifted vintage truck market. I wasn't looking for something fast. I have plenty of fast classic cars and fast modern cars. I thought something that was different that would really catch the eye of everybody that's out there would be kind of a cool route to go down. And I actually originally started looking at power wagons. I ended up purchasing a 1939 Dodge pickup truck, and and ended up abandoning and selling off that project for other projects. And when all the other projects were done, it came time to find the ultimate candidate for a new build. So in this case, I searched and stumbled across the Kaiser Jeep M715 Gladiator pickup truck, and they only made like 38,000 of them. So I picked up one down in Ohio, and I'll be honest, it was not in as great a shape as I originally anticipated. I uh, I really thought that with the new wheels and tires on it, the body didn't look all that bad. And this is typically how things go, right? You buy somebody else's project. The truck had already had um, a swap to F350 axles. The gentleman had also spent a great deal of money on the Toyo tires and the Black Rhino artillery style wheels. So I brought it home and started on the project and decided that it was going to need probably something that was a little bit more modern from a drivetrain perspective. And I weighed out the options of going with a Cummins and ended up landing on just buying a whole complete running F350. And the logic behind that is that I could reuse the wheels and tires that quite honestly made up the bulk of the cost of the vehicle originally. And I would have a running and driving truck. So I purchased this, which was a 2001 F350. It had a stack of about $18,000 in receipts, everything from turbo and exhaust to rebuild of the diffs to a brand new trans. I mean, just a lot of stuff, and it was reasonably well maintained. The body was a little rough, but the frame was good, and it was a good starting. One thing that I didn't realize when I purchased it is it had a 6-inch lift on it. And I know you say, well, it's a lifted truck. You should have knew that, but it had stock size wheels on it and tires on it. And it didn't occur to me. I just thought they had done a leveling kit on it. I didn't realize it had a significant lift. When I did the breakdown of the vehicle, I discovered that it had a 6-inch lift on it, which made the end result of my vehicle quite a bit different because it's quite a bit higher. But pulled the cab off the original M715, tore the body down, ended up selling off the frame, um, ended up selling off the axles and the drivetrain, um, pulled everything apart into individual pieces so I had access to be able to do some work on it, and then went to mounting it up onto the F350 frame. So a couple of lessons to be learned is it the first mock-up made me realize that the turbo, this engine that sits inside here, that intercooled turbocharged 7.3 liter sits way back into the firewall. So it ended up requiring a significant amount of work within the cab in order to get that cab moved back and the actual turbo diesel mounted inside. Here's a mock-up with, you can see how far back that turbo sits inside the cab. I had to build a firewall. Ultimately, I ended up welding all this up. It's got a removable panel. Did some ceramic coating and some heat sensitive work to kind of reflect the heat and the sound back from the turbo and the exhaust because it sits so far into the cab. And then I started tackling the cab itself, which again, I underestimated just the shape that the cab was in. Rockers were rusted out, cab corners were rusted out. The actual back of the bed, where the cab meets the bed, not the bed itself, but the actual back side of the cab was completely rotted out. So I ended up having to weld in new sheet metal there, weld in new cab corners, The bottom of the doors were salvageable, although I did have to do a little bit of welding work. You can see a little bit of filler work here. Um, Getting the cab in order, and ultimately, I was able to get the cab essentially recreated. Everything Raptor lined, the ceramic coating on the floors, on the firewall. Built a custom center console that's got a subwoofer and speakers in it. And ultimately, the interior came together pretty nice. I ended up doing wrapping the panels, the original steel panels, in factory issued denier nylon. Um, and did the firewall the same way. Put a custom console in with a marine grade stereo system in it. I've since made a couple of changes here. I used all of the factory Ford gauges. Um, I've since put an ECT3 programmer and control screen in that just bolts into the ECU for the Power Stroke diesel. And then I've got a cover over the factory switches, the factory Ford switches, so everything looks kind of vintage and older. Ultimately, the project came together pretty well. Um, a few other challenges I came up with. Um, when mounting, I ended up using like late model Jeep bumpers just because they were inexpensive and easy to obtain. Um, Ended up I was going to do square lights inside as the outside rounds and then replace the night vision rounds with squares. My wife stepped in and was like, that looks stupid having square lights there. So ultimately, I ended up changing that design, mounting up round lights. And finding a factory grill, which I Raptor lined as well. This is a factory grill off of a early 70s Cherokee, since they didn't come on the M715s. Retained all the original suspension, just ended up using rust inhibitor paint. I used Pour 15 on everything and then undercoated everything. Same thing with the steps. The steps are, I think, universal steps or steps for like a Jeep that I ended up welding up a drop bar for. The big change and where a lot of the fabrication work actually came into play was trying to make the bed and the cab fit the frame. I didn't want to shorten the frame on this truck up, so I ultimately used the stock length. So this is a stock F350 standard cab long bed, and there's 18 additional inches here that has the spare tire in the back is mounted in there. And I ended up just doing a jerry can mount with storage, and then was able to buy a universal roll bar, which is just a sheet metal roll bar, to hide the fact that the bed is an 8 foot bed along with an additional 18 inches. And it doesn't look too long. The finished product actually looks good. You'd never know that additional length was added. But and then the other thing I did is I kept the original, I think this is a tent box. It doesn't go all the way through now. It's storage on one side, and then this is actually the gas tank filler. So the factory Ford filler neck is mounted inside there. Um, Ultimately, the project came together pretty cool. It's been hit with Raptor liner. This is Battleship Gray. I've since done the factory Army star decals on the side. Made a couple additional changes. It's now got the factory. It's got the Rhino center caps on it. A couple other additional challenges. Had trouble getting a windshield for it. So for years, buying flat laminated safety glass was cheap and easy at local glass shops. Fast forward to 2015 or 2025, and it was like $400 to have the glass cut. And then I ended up breaking the windshield installing it and spent another $400 on new glass and ended up getting it cut smaller to be able to fit into the seal. But other than that, the project came together pretty cool. You'll have to watch my additional videos that shows the kind of the walk around and the video of the truck driving. And then once we get it out this summer and we actually put some miles on it, I'm sure I'll have some additional content to share as well. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys listening to the video. Watch my additional videos for just what's happening with the truck. And thanks for learning about my M715.